Namaskar. Hello and welcome to Daily Global Insights. Episodes 220 to 224 are all going to be audio only, and Sridharji will be doing the audio recording. I hope you like this format as much as you liked our video format and give us all the support. Please do like it on YouTube, share it on Facebook, and like and retweet on Twitter. And we are also on LinkedIn and Twitch. Thank you very much and enjoy.
Good morning. This is August 9th, Monday. Welcome to DGI, episode number 220. We start with the global news. The much controversial on and off Tokyo Olympics concluded on Sunday as COVID cases continue to rise in Tokyo. US, China, Japan, Britain, ROC made up the top 5 medal count, and more countries sharing the medals, reflecting much broader participation and in a competitive manner in various Olympic Games. Taiwan's medal haul of 12 spurs push to change the name from Chinese Taipei to Taiwan. China warns on interference in ASEAN to keep US at arm's length. China continues its tech crackdown, widening it from Tencent to Alibaba, causing turmoil in the markets. The Chinese companies listed in US and other exchanges have seen market valuations dip close to $800 billion as a result. In Europe, fires at the foothills of Mount Parnita in Greece that had ripped through lush forest and prompting evacuation town after town. This now seems to have reached the suburbs of Athens, causing alarm and panic. Protests against COVID-19 passports were held across France on Sunday and in some other cities around Europe. The cause for this protest is now to have access to restaurants, bars, museums, and theaters. Everybody must carry some identification that confirms they've had dual vaccinations before they're given access. This naturally has been resisted, and people feel that it is not the responsibility of the government to control their discretions. France promises euro $100 million euros to Lebanon at an international conference amidst collapsing Lebanese economy. So this is a much needed aid that is required to stabilize and inject cash into the Lebanese economy, which began to see its disruption about a year ago, ever since the major bombing incident. Belarus, which has also been at the centerpiece of controversy with its communist rule and structure, has tightened its border and amongst issues that it has with Lithuania. US Jewish groups welcome new government in Israel and hopes that the broad-based government will bring stability and peace to the people of Israel and in and around. As new Iranian leader takes office, his first meetings were with Hezbollah leaders and terrorist groups. This has again caused alarm. Of course, there's no doubt Mr. Sirsi took over, recognizing his past background. Rwanda and Mozambique army regained control in a port that was held by jihadists, Al-Sahab. Al-Sahab has connections to the ISIS or Islamic State linked group. They regained control of the Musimboa da Praia port, which is in the Mozambique region, but right at the cusp of the Indian Ocean. This port was under the terrorist control for almost 2 years, since 2019. US Embassy in Kabul urges US citizens to leave Afghanistan immediately. In India, Qatar Special Envoy agrees that Afghan peace process should be inclusive for its success. He meets with MEA Minister for External Affairs, Dr. Jaishankar. There's no doubt that the only way that peace can be restored is if all parties are willing to sit across the table and agree on a resolution. Otherwise, it is going to be the same status quo as was the case pre 9/11, when the fundamental law was enforced and everything was under the direct control of Taliban. Much was expected, but much little has happened other than the peace that prevailed, if one has to call it as the peace, during the 20 years of or 2 decades of US and NATO presence in the Afghan area. Pakistan replaces its Belt and Road head with someone who is close to Beijing. Most recently, one would have seen, we again reported in DGI that Pakistan has had lots of skirmishes in and around the Belt Road project areas, including blasts and casualties that has caused alarm in Beijing. Coming to the United States news, as the Olympics conclude in Tokyo, US has led the Olympic medals table again with 39 gold, 41 silver and 33 bronze for a total of 113 medals. Andrew Cuomo, who has been at the centerpiece of controversy with a number of alleged sexual allegations, is using the well-played playbook that scandal-plagued politicians have used historically. Deny the wrongdoing until the end. If and when the truth emerges, then the appropriate action follows. That seems to be the protocol. A number of people, including President Joe Biden and the House leader Nancy Pelosi, has called for resignation of Andrew Cuomo. Ellie Stefanik, the House representative from New York and the Republican leader, says COVID restrictions is chipping away at the civil liberties in United States. She's talking about the various vaccine mandates, mask on, mask off, schools, kids to be vaccinated, masks on in schools, masks on in public areas, etc. So, according to her, this is just basically imposing conditions with no scientific rationale. Cori Bush, who has been at the centerpiece of controversy, who has led the stand for defund the police movement, because she strongly feels that the police actions have cost many lives. So she is steadfast in her approach and she is steadfast in her zeal to advocate the defunding the police movement. This even at the cost of poll prospects to Democrats. There is a growing chorus within the Democratic Party and Democratic mayors, most recently the DC mayor, as well as the people in New York City, have asked for much more stringent law enforcement to make sure that there is safety and security preserved amidst rising homicides in the past few months ever since the new regime took over. Defund police movement is not something that is very well accepted by any community barring few selected members or few selected people within the community. Trump continues to message to GOP members not to support the infrastructure bill. Biden makes last-minute push for infrastructure bill as the vote looms. So you can see contrarian messages. Trump saying to GOP not to support. Biden making his plea, hey, I worked with you guys. It's a bipartisan. Please don't delay it any further. It is much needed. The delaying of this is causing already trauma in the society, and this needs to be put in place so we can continue to support as we come out of the COVID situation. So he makes his pitch for the bill to be passed. Bill Hagerty, the Tennessee Republican, is continuing to push for robust debate on the $1.2 million infrastructure bill in the Senate. He is suggesting that Mr. Schumer, please don't rush. Let's just get through. We got the draft law now in place. Let's debate. If there are any omissions and commissions, then we got to fix it before this gets passed. So he's in no mood to rush it. Let's see what Mr. Schumer does. We now await the bill finalization anytime and an announcement thereafter, unless there are some last minute hiccups. Coming to the elections, this election controversy doesn't seem to die. The controversial Mike Lindell, CEO of MyPillow, a very strong President Trump ally, has confirmed that delegates from 45 states have registered to attend a 3-day 2020 election Cyber 2020 symposium in South Dakota. This is planned for Tuesday. He claims to have 37 terabytes of irrefutable evidence that hackers who are backed by China switched votes from President Trump to Biden, which he plans to present. Now, to respond to Mr. Mike Lindell, Dick Durbin, the Democratic senator, claims that the actions of President Trump post-elections were almost leading to a coup. So Durbin's claim is that don't keep going on with this election rhetoric. Examine the actions of President Trump and make an assessment and judgment whether his actions post-elections could be construed as an attempted coup. So we have January 6th Capitol Hill riots. Now we have Dick Durbin making a claim whether the actions of President Trump were surmounting to a potential coup. Interesting. Dr. Fauci expects flood of COVID vaccination mandates after FDA approval. Remember, we have emergency approval in place today for Pfizer BioNTech as well as for Moderna. We don't have an approval as yet for AstraZeneca. We don't have an approval. We had approval for J&J. That's just been held back. But they will all go through the formal process. But once the FDA approval is given or granted, that it is firm and definitive, then Dr. Fauci thinks that more mandates can be issued. Without mandates, without formal approvals, you can't issue a mandate or you can't make anybody comply to mandate. He himself seems to be taking that position. Vaccine mandate masks in schools. Everybody says some schools agree, some schools don't agree. If you are in red state, there's one set of rules. If you are in blue state, there's another set of schools. You even now have teachers' union, which generally sides with the left or the Democrats, coming out in the open and saying that they are mandating masks into schools for school-going children. This is the same situation that we are grappling on the critical race theory as well. New York City officials and many small businesses object to proof of vaccine mandates. Now, in some of the cities, there's already this mandate. This is the varying mandates that are being applied between red states versus blue states because the vaccines are not formally approved by the FDA. So you have state level mandates that are going on. They say that to come to the restaurants and to eat in restaurants and bars and other public areas, you need to have a proof that, well, this is also happening in some of the workplaces, that you have to have vaccinated twice. 2 vaccines you ought to have taken before you can sit down and, gain access to the restaurants or gain access to work. We also are beginning to see mask mandates being institutionalized by various corporations. Moving to the next topic, Department of Justice launches investigation of Phoenix Police Department. There's an allegation that the Phoenix Police Department has used discriminatory or inappropriate rules in dealing with people with disability and other types of crimes committed by other people. And the investigation will focus on whether there was any discriminatory or whether they were off the record type of practices. And if so, then the appropriate action perhaps will be taken. Why Phoenix? It's interesting. Well, it doesn't happen in other police departments, but the DOJ has targeted Phoenix. Some of these things almost surmount to like political, because Arizona is one of the places where this election issue has propped up, and there is the audit, plus there's also been missing 205,000 missing ballots, etc. So it's interesting as to how DOJ has gone about targeting one specific police department amongst many. DOJ also tells courts not to block the eviction moratorium after two courts deemed the moratorium unlawful. Well, this is the saga. You remember the August 2nd, Supreme Court had indicated that the eviction moratorium is illegal, cannot be issued by a president, has to be only passed as a law by the House. It was never discussed in the House. So as soon as the deadline passed, which was August 2nd, then Mr. Biden extended the moratorium by 2 months, and now the moratorium expires in October. House owners and rental agents and everybody, were up in arms. They filed, and basically federal courts have granted them immunity from the moratorium, so which means they will demand rents. Until such time, the COVID moratorium was prevalent. Close to $15 billion had been lost as a result of inaccessibility to the rent. Within the COVID structure, there is no mechanism to compensate these people. Now we come to the Texas saga. Texas House special session adjourned again on Saturday as enough Democrats were not present to have the quorum. Now this is postponed until Monday. I'm not sure whether on Monday there's going to be all these Democrats who are having their sojourn and holiday in Portugal are going to return. So you have a very strange situation where these Democrats who are supposed to be lawmakers have become, fine line lawbreakers, whereby they are enjoying this sojourn in Portugal when they're supposed to be in session with no rhyme or rhythm. And the Texas governor has issued, through Attorney General, an arrest order for not fulfilling their legal obligations when they land in Texas. We also have the other saga, namely that they were quite generous. They didn't test, they boarded a plane, landed in Washington, D.C., gave a press briefing, and they gave their COVID to other members, and neither the White House nor others were unwilling to give the extent of people who were affected by this COVID. Moving to India news. India also had a very successful Olympic outing, finishing 48th with 7 medals, the highest number of medals that it has won, with 1 gold, 2 silver, and 4 bronze. India also just missed a medal in the women's hockey, and its golfer Aditi Ashok. Probably several other events, but this is, especially Aditi Ashok was just penultimate day of the event, and the Indian women hockey team, which made a tremendous impact after losing the first 3 matches, is just highlighted. On the vaccine front, India crosses 506 million vaccine doses. It's a remarkable number when one takes into account that the first set of vaccines were only released in November, and India was playing a pivotal role in simultaneously developing its in-house or homegrown programs with 2 major labs. Now, of course, many other pharma companies are, at least 5 others are in the business of developing vaccines. So to keep up its momentum, India also approved the single-shot vaccine from J&J, which is likely to come into production soon. Indian active cases, COVID-19 active cases, are at 406,822 and deaths at 427,862 against a total of 31.93 million cases. There is a concern in India as well on the Delta variant. The daily rate of new cases is around the 40,000 mark. Just to give you a contra example, United States is averaging between 100 to 120,000 new cases. India has also had very high recovery, or discharges or discharged cases, which is around 39 to 40,000. Very important development in the geopolitical arena. France, India, Australia is the new trilateral, and it is going to be elevated to leaders level meeting between the three M's: Modi, Macron, and Morrison. So the M cube will form the trilateral, or there's no quadrilateral here, it's a trilateral of FIA, France, India, Australia, with M cube, the three M's: Modi, Macron, and Morrison. The foreign ministers have met and laid the groundwork for this meeting, with maritime security, environment, and multilateralism as the top three priorities for this specific group. We don't know whether there will be an in-person meeting or there will be a virtual meet along the sidelines of the G20 meet, which is to take place in Italy in October. India and France also to launch space security dialogue to protect space assets. As you all know, India and France enjoy a very strong defense partnership. France has stood with India front center and been a very strong ally in all formats, be it in Indian Ocean or be it around the Himalayan border. Russian President Mr. Putin is to participate in the UN General Session to be chaired by PM Modi. Is just as a reflection that India is managing not only the complexities but adversities amongst various players with varying equations and challenges. Eye in the sky. India will launch its most advanced geo-imaging satellite, GISAT-1, on August 12th. How does this help? It will image the country 4 to 5 times a day. Very important data point. This will then enable it to track the region closely, including the border areas, namely China, Pakistan. Also keep track of the environment, floods, and a range of things. So this is a very, very positive development, both from a civil as well as from a military point of view. Prime Minister Modi says, tap opportunities in the post-COVID world. So you can target your $400 million USD exports for the rest of the year. So much of the GDP, which is lost due to COVID, can be made up through this export program. They are trying to work with, India is trying to leverage various diplomatic missions around the world, work with various countries, and leverage diverse capabilities that India has, thus contributing towards increased $400 billion exports income flowing through to GDP. Today, exports contribute 20% of GDP to India, roughly around $540 billion. If you take $2.7 trillion as the reference GDP number. PM Kisan Saman Nidhi program. Under the program, 9.75 crore farmers to get 19,500 crores rupees under income support scheme on Monday, which is today. This is the second tranche. Mr. Goyal calls for increasing handloom exports to 10,000 crores in 3 years. He has now taken charge of this ministry. This is one of the areas where I believe that the textile and handloom, India needs to give the impetus. India had a very focused agenda on agriculture, and one can see already the progress that India is making in that specific segment, which is one of the key drivers of Indian economy. Coming to the state of UP, it continues to make progress on all fronts, be it infrastructure, be it vaccination programs, be it socio-economic programs, be it other activities or national infrastructure programs. UP seems to be doing extremely well. It's both State tax and non-tax revenue grow by 18.5% in July, auguring well. The Orissa government, which has always focused on development, gives consent to Modi government for the 8,000 crores 382 kilometers coastal highway project that connects Odisha's Tangi with West Bengal's Diga. Rates remain unchanged. We talked about the MPC meeting, and RBI ignores inflation and says it will support nascent growth as economy gets reopened after the COVID-2 impact. That concludes India. Moving to markets. Dow and S&P closed at record levels on Friday following a very strong jobs report. Dow finished 35,200 points. Dow closed at 35,208.51. S&P closed at 4,436.52 points. And Nasdaq was slightly down at 14,835.76. Oil remained stable, and rates, the 10-year rates remained in that 1.2 band, and crypto made slight advance. Gold silver traded at the normal levels relative to Thursday. So broadly, market indexes saw marginal increase in Dow as well as in S&P, reflecting the positive sentiments in the job market. But one of the other news is that one needs to keep track is there's more than 1 million job openings than people looking for work. In other words, there is 1 million job vacancies. This is the challenge that the United States is facing because of a government which seems more on giving the dole-outs, or what you call as the aid, or direct payment aids and unemployment aid and other types of benefits, which reflects the sentiments of people unwilling to return to work. They don't want to come to work, they want their aid to continue. And there was this issue of states stopping. Quite a few states have stopped. Of course, they're all red states, have stopped. And they are giving incentives to people to return to work. Having said that, there's still 1 million more job openings than people looking for work. That's the key message. So what's ahead for this week? Inflation holds the key for the week ahead for the markets, with consumer and producer level inflation announcements expected later this week. So we'll be closely tracking the consumer inflation and the producer level inflation index. Consumer inflation is already at 5.4% when we reported last. But we seem to have overcome that, and the markets have ignored the inflation and continued its advancement in the market performance, purely driven by two factors: low rates and more stimulus. With that, we complete the Monday edition, and we'll see you tomorrow bright and early around the same time in United States, and early evening in India, perhaps mid-afternoon in Europe, and maybe early night in the Australian zones.